Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the jungle tier list for patch 11.3. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the stream. We start every night around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Usually go till 3 or 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Very friendly, chill community. We'd love to have you. And if you like tier lists like this, come back every patch. We do fresh tier lists, patch notes, and I'm constantly adding new champion guides and topical guides like best one trick, how to macro better, how to micro better, and tons of other guides on the channel. So be sure to check all that out. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So the jungle right now is dominated, I think, by high mobility tanks if you can get a hold of those types of champions. And they did try to nerf those on the patch notes. I meant to have a tab of the patch notes up, but basically they ended up nerfing Udir's channeling Phoenix stance a little bit. They nerfed Rammus's taunt cooldown at later levels from 10 to 12, and they didn't touch Skarner. They did nerf Dead Man's Plate. They took off 75 HP off of it, but all of the other items in those types of builds are still going to be strong. And Force of Nature did get buffed. So, you know, some champions that don't have a lot of healing and shielding in their kits, like Skarner and Rammus, might actually opt for Force of Nature over something like Spirit Visage if they don't have like a Moonstone Enchanter on their team. But nevertheless, these are going to be the champs that are going to be pretty solid. So let's go ahead and get in here. So I still think that Udir is going to be number one. And if you're kind of curious, well, you know, why is Udir so strong these days? There's been a couple of factors that have played into this. So number one is they did really buff Phoenix stance over several patches. And I think people just didn't quite see the potential there. You know, maybe people thought that you had to go like all AP or something like a Leandri's or just some kind of goofy build to take advantage of it. But the base damage is so high right now, even after the nerf, that you can just build it anyways and then build full tank and still be very strong. So that's what people have been doing. You just rush Phoenix. That allows you to clear your jungle faster, and then once it's clear, then you can just spend the entire time ganking, and you just go for kind of this need for speed build where you end up getting Phase Rush, which is, you know, gives you even more movement speed. But one of the key aspects of Phase Rush as well is it gives you 75% slow resistance, which means people can't even slow you down when you're in Phase Rush. So unless they have like a lot of hard CC and they can blow you up during that CC, you're going to be able to get away from almost anything. So you can just run around, you know, turbo farm your jungle, farm their jungle, just constantly camp, you know, whichever lane you want to go for. And he's always been pretty strong in the early game, right? Like, he can duel a lot of other people. Now, without Tiger, the dueling is a little bit less effective, but he's still just going to be strong. Lots and lots of damage. But now in team fights, because he can run around so fast, he can reliably get that bear stance on a lot of different champions. So that's been a big part of his revival. And then the Turbo Chem Tank changes are huge as well, because that's even cheaper now. It puts him at 2,800 gold, whereas a lot of other junglers are going to be working with items that are over 3,000 gold. So not only does he farm really quickly, but now he can get online a lot faster with a really high impact spell that's going to allow him to gank. So sometimes he comes running in so fast with Turbo Chem Tank and Bear Stance that even if there's a ward, like a shallow ward, you can still just run right through that ward and get on the gank. So, very strong. And then Dead Man's Plate plays into that as well. It did get nerfed. It's still going to be very efficient, right? 400 health, 40 armor, and then 5% movement speed. You just dash straight in there and start taking people down. And then you are seeing some Lich Bane as well. So as a second item, it's actually a little bit better than Dead Man's if you do want that extra kind of burst damage, or if you're trying to take out towers or barons faster. This is going to help you out. So depending on how much damage your team has, you may not necessarily need to go for Lich Bane, but it is probably your best damage option right now. And then Force of Nature is pretty good. You can also get Bramble Vest, which is massive because Grievous Wounds has such a huge advantage. Yes, they did nerf Gore Drinker and company, you know, on this patch, but there's still going to be Moonstone everywhere. People are still going to be getting Gore Drinker. So being able to play a champion that can reliably get a good form of Grievous Wounds, aka either Bramble Vest or Oblivion Orb, because Executioners is not that great, is going to be a huge benefit in this meta. So, and this also enables you, if you play a tank, then that enables your support to be able to play an Enchanter and take advantage of Moonstone, which is the best support item right now. So, you know, if you play like a squishy assassin type of jungler, then your support is probably going to have to play a tank, or your team's going to have no engage, and that can be a little awkward. So this unlocks the ability to play enchanters more successfully in the bot lane if you go for some kind of tank. So he's useful for that. Anyways, that's why he's here. People kind of figured out the phase rush thing, and it combines really well with the buffs to Turbo Chem Tank, the changes to Deadman's Plate to add more movement speed, the fact that your jungle item is free now, because he didn't really have a good, whatever they used to be called, like, upgraded jungle item, right? Like, a lot of times, he would just get the Bomby Cinder version of it, that just to help you out with your wave clear, but it really wasn't that good on him. And a lot of tanks were that way. So this kind of liberated the tanks not having to get Cinder Hulk. That's what I'm looking for. Because Cinder Hulk was really, really bad for like the first 20 minutes of the game. It gave you wave clear, but the stats on it were horrible. It was like an 80% item, but you just had to get it for the clear. Now you get your bombies off of Turbo, and you can start, getting more impactful items, like completing your Turbo, completing Deadman's, and things like that. So that's just really unlocked the tanks. So the tanks were super powerful very early in the season, stuff like a Mumu, stuff like Nunu, and now it's shifted more over into these like high mobility skirmisher type of tanks like Udir and like Skarner because of the new itemization, and they haven't been nerfed that hard yet. Okay, so that's what's up with Udir. So I think he's going to be number one. I don't think many other people would doubt that. He's got a 55% win rate in solo queue. He's second or third most played jungler in pro. Super strong right now. Now, Skarner is sleeper, so if Udir gets nerfed, you can play Skarner. Very simple champ, also very similar to Udir in many respects. Similar win rate as well. So if you go down and look at Skarner, like Udir is getting picked 12% of the time, Skarner's only getting picked 2% of the time, but they basically have the same win rate. And it's a very similar concept, right? You have a Turbo Chem tank that can clear the jungle pretty quickly. Now, not as fast as Udir, but still pretty good. And he has those little shrines to give him even more mobility to run around. Now, I thought more people were going phase rush with him. Let me look at that just really quickly here. Yeah, phase rush is 55, and then it's a very low pick rate on Predator. I guess you can do it, but most people are going phase rush for the movement speed, which is good, but also the 75% slow ignore is really the big deal. Why phase rush people have realized just how strong that is. Now, he actually scales super well later on in the game. If you saw Udir's chart a second ago, he kind of goes straight down in the gutter, upper left to bottom right. So Udir definitely falls off late game. But Skarner's actually quite good in the late game. So, I mean, you could make a case for Skarner being number one in solo queue. But, yeah, Turbo Farm does pretty good damage. The big thing is Udir does have the stun with Bear Form, but Skarner's Impale, I would say, is going to be even stronger just because you can pull them out of position back into the rest of your team, and so it gives you even extra usage of that movement speed, right? Because if you're able to proc that phase rush and you have everything else going on, then you're going to run even faster to pull them even deeper into your team. So that's huge, and then you can stun multiple targets as well with your E in team fights. So really strong, puts out pretty respectable damage in the early game. You can go full tank. I think if he's going full tank, he might do more damage if he doesn't, like, because Udir can get the Lich Bane, but if he goes full tank, he's doing quite a bit of damage though with the Q repeat. Remember they changed this to do like max percentage health. I think it's 6 every time you press Q and trigger it a second time on people. So I won't go into all of his stats right now because I want to make sure we get through a lot of these champions, and I do want this to be, 30 minutes or less. I know it's always a meme on the channel. But anyways, super strong right now. Very similar build, except just minus the Lich Bane, just Turbo Chem Tank into Deadman's. You can do Swiftness. Ionians are also really good too because your ult is so impactful. So super strong champ. Yeah, definitely consider going Skarner, especially if Udir's banned. And then Fiddlesticks kind of breaks the mold of some of these top-end champs, but I think that he's still going to be extremely strong right now just because of kind of the unique kit that he brings to the table. So he does a lot of like AoE damage later on in team fights. He's really all about vision and positioning. If you can be in the right place at the right time around objectives and you get really good vision by buying control wards, using your effigies properly, and you get the jump on somebody with your ult, you're going to win the fight. It's like your team automatically wins the fight if you get the jump, 90% of the time as Fiddlesticks. That's really good. And he does power farm very well. He can farm multiple camps at the same time. So that's really, really strong. Now, he can be invaded, so you have to be careful with that. And if they do get a lot of magic resist, some of these mega tanks can be very problematic if they can run up and just scare you out of bushes and face tank you. That can be a problem if they get Force of Nature, Spirit Visage, that type of stuff. But he contributes a lot of damage, and he has a lot of CC. So that point-click fear just completely destroys a lot of mobile, squishy types of champs, and if you get the jump on like a Zed or an Akali or a Riven or anything like that, and you just CC them, you know, for like 2 seconds, they're going to die most of the time. So he brings a unique combination of extremely high AoE damage and point-click fear that also has a silence as well. So lots of CC, lots of damage, high-quality wave clear, pretty good itemization if you end up going for Demonic Embrace. And I guess people are doing Leandries. I know that Night Harvester had been really good, but Night Harvester is actually still a higher winner. So I would recommend Harvester over Leandries just because that health is so important, and you don't really need the mana because you're in the jungle and you have like pretty much infinite mana because of the jungle items these days. I don't like Proto Belt as much just because like it can get you closer to get your fear, which is nice, but it has a lot of fail scenarios. It's not guaranteed to do that damage, right? Like the Harvester is going to do the damage in a team fight, but if they're all kind of spread out a little bit, you're going to get a lot less damage. So basically, Proto Belt is less damage, but more guaranteed to be able to get the position and get that key, fear down. So they build out of the exact same items, and they have pretty much the same stats. Harvester, Proto Belt has 50 more health, but they have basically the same stats. So it just kind of depends on what you want, whether it's more reliability on the fear or more damage overall in team fights. But either way, I think he's still going to be super strong. You do have to be careful and make sure that you're not going to get invaded. So just you want to have strong lanes early on that can push in and stop people from invading you as much as possible. But yeah, really strong champ. He's been one of my go-to picks for quite a while now. And then I think that Nunu is still going to be really strong. He's just always kind of low-key 54, 55%, and he rarely gets nerfed. He did get nerfed with, you know, some of the tanks earlier on in the season. I guess he's down to 53 these days, but he's still going to be good. He did get nerfed last patch. I guess that's a lie, right? They did nerf his base health last patch, but he's still going to be a very strong champion right now. He doesn't take the same suite of items, so he doesn't go Turbo Chem Tank because he's already really fast. So he just opts for having some slightly better stats and just doing more damage if you can stick to people for longer. He's got the Deadman's, and he can get Spirit Visage, which is really handy, especially if you have a Moonstone Enchanter. And I would say that, I don't know, he has a similar level of sort of tankiness of some of the other ones. That Chomp does keep him alive for quite a while. Skarner and Udir don't have as much sort of innate lifesteal built into their kits. He does have, well, they all gank pretty well in the early game, but that snowball is pretty brutal, especially if you can secure a scuttle and then engage off of the scuttle, because once you start your snowball, it checks your movement speed right there, and then you keep any movement speed modifiers throughout the entire snowball. So if you start your snowball on a scuttle, even all the way deep into their lane, you're still going to have that extra movement speed. So scuttle control is extremely important for Nunu because it just turbocharges your ganks. But yeah, really strong, very safe clear as well. Like, it's hard to invade and punish a Nunu early because he can just run away. And you secure objectives. There should never be really a 50-50 objective. So especially if you start moving down into lower elos where the supports are not going to properly zone off the enemy jungler when you're trying to take objectives, just being able to combine your Q plus your smite is going to give you about 1700 true damage if you learn how to time that at the exact same time. So people should not be able to take away, you know, your ability to finish off an objective. Be careful that you do not get CC'd though, because if you get crowd controlled, it will stop you from consuming. Crowd control does not stop smite. Suppression might, I don't know, but most crowd control does not stop smite. Like silence, stuns, all that stuff, you can still smite through that, but it will stop you from consuming. So just be careful that you're not getting hit by that stuff at the key moment. Okay. But yeah, very strong champ. I have him just a little bit lower. He does have a harder time getting to the back line. So like Skarner and Udir are kind of just like permanently fast because of their kits. Versus he's fast on the engage with his snowball, but people can body block that. If they have other tanks like an Udir or a Skarner, they can body block that and then kite you out from getting onto the back line. So he is super, super strong right now. I just think he's a little bit of a step down from the Skarner and the Udir, but he does bring a lot of utility. He has a lot of slows. He has that Blood Boil, which buffs up your AD carries and helps them out with their movement speed. It's going to help them kite a bit more. So I think that overall he's got more utility, but a little bit less raw power, a little bit less mobility than some of the other ones. Less backline access, which can be really important depending on the matchup. Okay, and then moving down a little bit here, we have Rammus. So Rammus was nerfed on this patch, but he's still going to be a super strong champion right now. He's still at like a 55% win rate. And what's good about Rammus? Same thing that's good about, you know, the first couple of picks. I just think he's down just a little bit just because his kit just doesn't have as much raw power as some of the other ones. But with that power ball, you can get in there and gank really quickly, and it's going to be same drill. You just roll up with the turbo chem tank, Dead Man's Plate, and then he's a perfect fit for Thornmail and Bramble Vest because it synergizes so well with his W. It's so much damage when you taunt people into attacking you. So yeah, he's just going to be a super strong champion overall. And he has a very good matchup against a lot of the other AD champs out there. So he's going to be one of the best into things like Kha'Zix, Graves, just any other physical damage melee champ. They're just like never going to be able to kill him in team fights. So he just completely wrecks melee physical damage, and he takes towers pretty quickly. So that's one unique thing that's often overlooked about him is if you do get a successful gank, you know, with your Powerball and taunt, and you kill him without using your ult, you can actually use your ult to just knock down towers really fast. People forget about that. His ult does thousands of damage to towers. That's lots and lots of free gold off of plates in the early game, and this gives you a ton of map advantage to get down those first couple of towers. So that is a really nice benefit that, you know, is often overlooked. And he's probably like, if he just stands down and just soaks a lot of fire, he's probably the tankiest of the tanks, especially against physical damage dealers of those mainstream tanks, the Udir and the Skarner, right? They're going to be like pretty strong, but a little bit squishier than Rammus is. He doesn't take phase rush as much because really, kind of like Nunu, he's just all about that initial engage. But he locks him up a little bit better than Nunu does with the bump and the taunt. And this is on a lower cooldown than Nunu's Snowball is. This goes down to a 6-second cooldown, not including ability haste. So you can bump somebody, you know, taunt them, maybe get a kill, and then after that still run people down with your with the next Powerball, because that's what you max first. Versus Nunu, you come in with the Snowball, you're not getting another one, right? Most of the time, it's a pretty long cooldown. So anyways, I think that Rammus is still going to be pretty strong right now. Hecarim is another one who's pretty powerful. People might have him in S-Class. He's okay, but I feel like his matchup is not fantastic into like some of these other mega tanks. It's okay. And he does take a little bit longer to come online, so like his base damage is going to be lower. He doesn't really have CC until he gets his ultimate. But as the game goes on, he is much more of a powerhouse, and he has some of the best backline access of any of the other champs. So you're seeing the win rate drop a little bit down to 53. But when he ults, he can get on that backline, disrupt the AD carry, disrupt that pesky mage, and he's going to go for sort of these higher DPS items, right? So he's going to be able to get stuff like Divine Sunder, Sterix, even though it's nerfed, still pretty good. And then after that, you can kind of decide if you want to get like a Dead Man's Plate or Death Stance. It's a little more situational. I think he can also go Trinity, although I'm not sure of the win rates on that. It's about the same if you want to go Trinity or Divine Sunder. It just depends on if they have a lot of squishies and you just want to blow them up, Trinity's very good, or if you need to be more of that frontline tank, and if that percentage health is a bit more meaningful, then Divine Sunder is going to be a better choice. So you do have a couple options there. And then he has 3 different options for the secondary that are all pretty good with Sterix, Deadman's, or Death Stance. So solid champ overall. Starts off a little bit weaker, but you know, in theory gets stronger. Although, as you can see, the win rate does go down over time pretty significantly. So Skarner is still going to outperform him late game, even though it seems a little weird. Skarner does seem to be the one that scales the best out of all of them, at least statistically. Now, Skarner is a much lower play rate, though, so you have to be careful with those assumptions because it's probably just one-tricks that are playing Skarner versus you have a lot of, you know, average Joes and Janes playing stuff like Hecarim that may not necessarily know what they're doing as much. So that's going to drag the win rate down a little bit. So if it was just like the best Hecarim's playing, he might be 55% plus, but because he's so popular, it's going to drag it down a bit. Okay, Ivern's still going to be very good if you're good on Ivern. You know, Moonstone, I've talked about it before in a lot of videos. Super strong item right now, and he is really the jungler who can use it the best. I know that LS really likes Moonstone on Leah. We'll talk about her in a second, but really Ivern is the one that it's very well suited for. He was a huge beneficiary of the new rework to the starting items because he never upgraded his anyways because they were all terrible on him. So he loves those changes. He loves the extra mana, health, and all those stats that you get off of that item early on. And then Moonstone is going to heal for thousands. The Putrefire buff is huge on him. I think that that is the best Grievous Wounds item in the game. I talked about this in the support tier list video, and it's his highest win rate second item, so take note of that. It is 2% higher win rate than Staff of Flowing Water. Now, it's 800 games, so it's not, you know, the same level of sample size, but so people are probably getting it in extreme situations as a second item, but it is still a very, very strong item. in a lot of situations. So, you know, if they have a lot of healing, if they have Gore Drinker plus Moonstone on their team, it might be better just to get the Putrefier. Sorry, just texting my buddy here real quick. We're just about done with this. I thought I muted that. But anyways, so yeah, you have good options. You have Staff of Flowing Water, you have the Putrefier, Ardent Censer. If you have a lot of auto attackers on your team, can still be good. Redemption is okay. I feel like Redemption has kind of gotten lost in the shuffle here because there is so much Grievous Wounds. It does hurt Redemption, and it's not guaranteed. You can miss, your allies can run out of it, and it does cost 200 more gold, so it's just a little awkward to try to buy this item now versus what it used to be. And it used to be a little bit better on Ivern because you got the early health regen, which is nice on your first couple of clears. But nevertheless, really strong champ, very difficult to play correctly. You have to micromanage his pet. You have to really understand your ranges and your threat levels because he is very squishy if they get a hold of you, but you have a lot of tools to work with, right? Like you have your Q, which can operate as engage or peel. You have your shield, which is, you know, obviously going to mitigate a lot of damage, but also applies slows. So he's got a lot of different tools in his toolkit. He's really fun. I recommend trying him out if you want to, but I think he's a lot better in kind of like mid-tier sort of elo, like gold and platinum and maybe low diamond. And I think he falls off a lot of times in higher elo just because he can get bullied out early. And in lower elo, people just may not be able to work around your tools well enough. You might need to index for more damage. But I think that he definitely does have a place, and he definitely can be very strong, especially with specific team comps. So anyways, Ivern's going to be strong. And then Karthus is the next one that I'll mention here. And I think Karthus is weird because he can get completely dumpstered in the early game. But if the games drag out, if the times extend just a little bit longer, he does have a guaranteed level of power with that ult. You know, you just press ult and it just does a lot of damage at a certain point. And if you just get into their team, right, in a team fight, if you just die in the middle of their team, you're still going to put out a ton of damage. And when you have so much just like lockdown CC with the Skarner, like Skarner can drag people back into Karthus, or you got stuff like, you know, Udir that can hold people still, and it's just going to be soaking a lot of pressure and a lot of threat. You just might get left alone to be able to get into the middle or to chuck those Qs. So he can be invaded, and this can be a problem early on if you're against something like an Udir. But they have also nerfed some of the, you know, really hard invade champs. You know, stuff like Graves has been nerfed really heavily, and that was a champ that was pretty good into him, at least in the early game. So still going to be a strong champ. Can turbo farm really well. I think they buffed up his Q a little bit a couple of patches ago, and that's what's kind of brought him back in. But yeah, excellent, you know, Leandre's, Demonic Embrace, and then he can use the Oblivion Orb really well. So that is going to be pretty handy. And then obviously Zhonya's is going to be pretty good. That did get a little nerf on this patch, but very strong if you want, you know, some guaranteed power for late game and someone who can turbo farm. I personally would prefer Fiddlesticks at a lot of elos for this. But particularly as you start moving up higher and higher in elo, and it's going to be harder to get that extra vision advantage to really leverage Fiddlesticks' strengths, then Karthus starts to come into play. You know, he's going to be a champ where you really want your lanes to be strong, though, so that they can help you out if you get invaded. And higher elo helps, too, because they will ward a lot more for you, and they will understand that people will try to come invade and challenge you, and he can come deal with that. Now, he also takes objectives way faster, so, like, Barons will melt, you know, under your Qs if you just have someone to tank it for you. So that is a huge advantage over something like Fiddlesticks. Also, is that, you know, he does melt those objectives way faster. So I think he is really good. I just think he's a bit more, requires a bit more setup and a bit more cooperation with your team to function, especially in the early game. Okay, last few champs here. Then you can just kind of look at the rest of them and see, because I do want to keep it under 30 minutes. We have Talia. She did get nerfed on this patch. Oh, and before you mention Yuumi, I know someone's going to say something before they get to this part of the video. I have Yuumi there as a placeholder for Viego, okay, because this tier, I didn't want to make an entirely new tier list, and this tier list did not include Viego. It had all the other champs, but did not have him. So that is a stand-in for Viego. It's not Yuumi in the jungle, it's Viego. So I know there's going to be a comment about it, but I should have mentioned at the beginning of the video, because everyone... I'm probably going to get like 5 comments about that. But anyways, not actual Yuumi, Viego in the jungle. We're just kind of shorthanding it here. Okay, so Talia is still going to be very strong. And, you know, you notice that a lot of these champs are tanks and mages. Because you do not want to play into Thornmail, I feel like, because these tanks, they're going to be impossible to deal with against this stuff. Like, once they start getting a couple of items in Thornmail, you're playing right into those Grievous Wounds. And that's why I knocked stuff like Olaf down a little bit. He still is good, but I feel like his matchup got a lot worse with the nerfs to healing, and with, I mean, they're just 100% going to have Bramblefest into use. That's why I think that some of these mages, agile mages that can put up high damage, can be pretty decent. So that's sort of what these are. You kind of take your pick of what you want here. So Talia, I still think will be pretty good. She can farm pretty well. Does a lot of burst damage. If she doesn't get checked later, you know, just her knockback through all of her stuff into the burst damage is going to be high. Her win rate did fall quite a bit on this one, so you could definitely make an argument knocking her down to C if you want to. But it's still going to be a lot of burst, is faster to go to gank, so it takes her longer to clear, and she might take a bit more damage, but she can show up faster to gank. She can get better recall timings and run back faster with her little rock slide passive, so she's still going to be pretty good if you're good on her, but you have to be very, very good at hitting your Qs, and most importantly, hitting your E for those knockbacks. But if you're talented on her, I think she'll still be strong. Leah is another one that I think is pretty good, especially at higher elo brackets. If you can kite the camps properly, if you can space properly in team fights, she's going to put out a ton of damage. I personally think that the Leandri's build is going to be a lot better. The Moonstone build. And these are also higher skill cap champs. Once you start getting into Lolita, like, it's really hard to mess up Udir and Skarner from, like, a micro level. Yes, you can macro incorrectly, but you can do that with any champ. Versus, like, Leah and Talia and stuff like that, like, you have to have your spacing correct and just manage your threat level. It's just a lot harder, I think, to operate those champions in team fights than it is some of the other ones. So, you'll notice that Moonstone, if you rush that first item on Leah, has a 43% win rate. Overall, okay, so please don't get it. Please don't meme on it. I know that LS loves this item. You know, LS is right about a lot of things, but I don't think this is one of them. Debatable, but statistically difficult to debate. Okay, and then, you know, Leandri's is kind of bad as well. It's 49%, so you could try something like Night Harvester. A lot of people don't do that, but it does have a high win rate with a decent representation. And then after that, just getting more damage, either Demonic Embrace or Zanya's is probably going to be a good option. But tons and tons of AoE teamfight damage, so if they don't have a ton of movement speed, I feel like Skarner and Udir are going to be rough if they get a hold of you. But if it's something that you can kite, if they just have a bunch of tanks on their team or bruiser types of champs, then I think that she can be pretty good. And she has true damage built into her kit too, so that's pretty good. Or if you have a frontline tank that can hold them still, right? If you have like a Leona or something that can, or like a Malachi that can hold the Udir still long enough to combo him, it can be pretty good. And then, like, once you're starting to get, like, if you're a one-trick or just really skilled on Nidalee or Elise, I think both of those kind of compete for the same spot. They're both pretty good. They're just really early game, like, hard invade, hard domination champs that fall off hard late. So I think that they can be quite strong, especially into some of these weaker early junglers like the Ivern, like the Fiddlesticks, like the Karthus. A good Nidalee player can really punish them. And I think even into stuff like Skarner and Udir, especially because Udir's not going Tiger form anymore, his dueling is a lot worse. I think that she might be able to fight the Udir if he steps on traps or if you hit him with some spears. I think you might be able to fight him early. So very difficult to play them correctly. Especially Nidalee, but if you can, and if you master the art of the invade and the escape and the constant harass, I think that she can be a really strong dominant champion. And then Elise, very similar. She has more CC, more dive potential with her webbing, and just probably more upfront burst that's a little more guaranteed if you just hit your web than Nidalee. She's harder to mess up, but she's still going to be like very early game dependent. She's still going to fall off really hard to other champs. So if you want the early invade, if you want the like hyper aggression, then I think those two champs can be very good. Olaf got nerfed pretty hard on this patch, but he's still going to be pretty solid if you can get ahead, you know, on him. Kha'Zix has a higher win rate now, so I went ahead and moved him up a bit, but gonna have a really bad matchup into Udir or Skarner. But if it's any of these squishy mage type of champs, if you can, you know, get away with it, he is one of the hardest, like, high damage snowball champions in the game. And then the last one that I'll mention, and we're pretty much out of time because I do want to try to keep these under 30 minutes, is going to be Viego. And he is another one that's like hyper scaling, hyper damage. I think that going for a hybrid build with like Asterix somewhere mixed in is going to be a lot better than trying to go for like a Kraken Slayer or something like that, like this Glass Cannon melee champ. So people are still experimenting around with different items, but I would definitely try to make him into like a DPS tank type of champ as for the best results. But Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. Check out all the rest of the tier list for every patch, and I'll see you next time. Have a good day.